Okay. Welcome, athletes. Coach Blu here. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. Doing a little bit of a different format. And so I'll wait for just a few seconds that people jump on here and do a little bit of housekeeping, get the Zoom links up and rolling for everybody. And yeah, see if we can get a few more people on board. This is one-on-one with Coach Blu every week, same time, 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. So wherever you are, I think that it could change, obviously, right? But I'm happy to have everybody here tonight. What a cool experience this is going to be, to have a lot more platforms to reach and to get a few more people, I guess, some awareness on what Addict to Athlete's all about. I think part of our goal here is to help instruct people on how to sobriety at the same time doing Coach Blu. We'll have a few people popping in. Got a lot of questions that have come in too. But as you jump in and join the group, because this isn't a webinar, this will be a group. If you have a question or something, you can raise that little blue hand and we'll pull you over to ask your question. But as we get rock and rolling, I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. We always have great dialogue going here. One of the things that I'm super stoked about is how many new people we've been getting simply because of the platform and what it does. And so with one-on-one live with Coach Blu, you get to ask any questions, addiction related, mental health related, whatever's on your mind, whatever's in your heart, we can help. And so jump on if you have some questions. Like I said, some others have been shooting us questions all throughout the week, and really excited to open up the platform to YouTube and to a few other areas. So if you're on one of those platforms, we invite you to jump over and be part of the dialogue. I'm a mental health counselor, substance use disorder counselor. My wife, Marissa, our athletic director, she is the rec therapist, and Addict to Athlete was kind of a brainchild of both of those worlds colliding. And in the world in 2011, when we started, where there wasn't a lot going on in the world of recovery, specifically with community meetings, it was kind of saturated with a very dominant community meeting. We decided to create our own outlet for recovery. My own personal story was being able to play out in the realms of erasing addiction and replacing it with things of greater value. And that greater value happened to come through at a really important time in my life, where I used health, wellness, recreation, and mountain biking as a tool to get clean. So if I look at it through the lens of what did it do, it allowed me to be something else. And it really allowed me to kind of open up the horizon and get to a spot in life where I didn't have to just be an addict. In fact, on Team Addict to Athlete, we don't identify ourselves as addicts. We identify ourselves as athletes, as fathers, as brothers, as scholars, and so much more. We believe wholeheartedly that once an addict, always an addict is not true. And so, we are very different than some of the other traditional groups. We don't claim to have ties or connections with any other group, but we respect all manners of recovery. It doesn't matter how you get it, as long as you get to that destination, which is pursuing sobriety, healing from addiction. And so for all you who are looking and watching on this on a new platform, I'm glad that you're able to kind of get a little bit of what we're doing. And as you get closer to the team, I would hope that you would jump on our social media outlets. We have an amazing connection through social media. If our social media hasn't reached you yet, jump on Facebook and a few other, like LinkedIn and Instagram, and believe it or not, TikTok, and jump on the team. Just because our name is Addict to Athlete, it doesn't mean that that's the end all be all. What it means is that we're using extracurricular recovery, doing things to recreate life and recreate sobriety. And the cool part is you do it at your own pace. Even though we use the word athlete in our name, you don't have to be a world-class athlete to join. We say that you just walking into one of our groups or jumping onto the page and then preparing yourself use the same principles that it would take to become a world-class athlete and apply those to your sobriety, you can be a world-class individual in recovery. So kind of a neat thing. We have social media, podcasts, all kinds of stuff to get you guys informed on what we're doing here. Just a little bit of background for all the new viewers on what Team Addict to Athlete is. We are a 501c3 nonprofit, and we're creating content to help you guys get recovery. And the hopes to launch a recovery program online for family systems and for individuals who need help, who cannot afford the astronomical amount of money that it costs to get sober these days. Having worked in the industry for many years and seeing some tragedy that's happened in the treatment center world, kind of got a bad taste in my mouth for how much money is invested on such mediocre returns. And so we're hoping to help get you guys into a spot of recovery and healing at a fraction of the cost, so that you're not having to refinance your home only to have it be taken away when you got to go back 3, 4, or 5 times. That being said, again, I want to thank everybody for jumping on tonight. And Marissa's doing some stuff behind the scenes. And so if you want to be part of the show, I say jump on to the meeting. You can hang out. You can talk a little bit about situational things that maybe you're dealing with, mental health specifically. A couple questions today have to do with depression and some seasonal affective disorder. A couple other ones are talking a little bit about what's the first steps to take in finding help, and where do you go, because so many people Google first, and it all depends on who's paying the most money for their SEO, which means the taglines to grab your attention. And more often than not, you'll find yourself getting led to a maze of manipulation and lies and false promises and all kinds of things that just don't pay out. And so our goal here is to not just educate about addiction recovery, but also the why. Go to the core of the issue. And we'll talk a little bit about that as well. Marissa, can you I'm sure you can hear me on your Planet 9, wherever you're at. So why don't you unmute yourself just so I can make sure that my mic coming out is good, just in case.
Yeah,
you want to say hello?
It's good. I can hear you great.
Okay.
We're doing the meeting and not a webinar, I see.
Yeah, we're doing we're trying this outlet. Do you think it's working so far?
Yeah, new link and password, but looks like we're live on YouTube and on Twitter.
Yeah.
And Facebook.
Okay. All right. Awesome. Well, Marissa will kind of be at the helm, and if you guys, like I say, if you pop in and whatnot, this is going to be more of a group process too, because it is in the group. But you're more than welcome to ask your questions on Facebook Live or jump on. So we'll jump into it. The first question that I kind of alluded to just moments ago was that about depression. Coach Blu, I've noticed that there are times throughout the winter that I get more depressed than not. Meaning, I know what seasonal depressive disorder is, and I also know I don't have it, because my depression lasts not just through the winter, but into the summer as well. It seems as though most of my days and nights are me trying to find excuses and ways out of responsibilities, and then just trying to get up the energy and the courage to face tomorrow. What do I do? Hopeless and fearful. All right, let's talk about depression. Let's talk about depression in and of itself. I had a really good friend of mine who really taught me when I was going through school how to be an addiction counselor. It was way back in the day. We're talking like 2000, 2001. And his name was Derek. And I remember Derek had always kind of talked about his depression. And here I am, this bright-eyed, bushy-tailed substance use disorder counselor, and I'm going to take on the world and change people's lives. And I remember that Derek would have these days where he was on fire, just passionate about his recovery, passionate about life. And he taught me a tremendous skill set on how to help youth. And one day I walked into his office and I was like, optimistic. Hey, what's going on with group tonight and all that? And I looked at him and he had this affect, this face. It was just like sadness. And I'm like, Derek, you okay, buddy? And he's like, come here, I want to show you something. I walked around his desk and he opened up his blinds, and it just so happened it was one of the coldest, horrible, rainy days, and it was fall. It was just like fall transitioning into winter. And Derek's like, see this out here? He's like, this is my life every day. And it hit me that that's what depression really looks like. That when the world is going through storms and cold and wind, that Derek's like, now I'm home. I get emotional because it really hit me. It hit me hard, because I wasn't really, I wasn't ready for what that meant. And what I mean by that is I wasn't prepared to say, how do we make that better? Because I was dumbfounded by it. I'm like, okay. Derek tried a lot of medication. He tried a lot of, relationship. He tried a lot of therapy, all this stuff. And he had times of greatness and times of sadness, but I never really quite rebounded from that visual. Derek was a severe alcoholic, and because of such, just several years ago, he passed away due to some alcohol-related accident. And he was a mentor of mine, and so whenever we talk about depression, I really start getting in the mindset of like, this is a big deal, this is a big issue. And so early in recovery, when you start getting clean, depression seems to be one of the first emotions that push through, because there's no more reward. The substance has stopped. The brain's still very active and wanting more. You're starting to feel the withdrawal. You're starting to feel the pull, and life looks a little dull. One of the greatest things, and this is kind of a catch-22, one of the greatest things you can do is start moving. I'm a firm believer that in your own recovery, you have to have some movement. You've got to be moving and grooving a little bit, walking, exercising, beginning to switch your diet. Your body is starving for feeling. And so really there's a lot that can happen. There are medications, antidepressant medication, things of that nature. Most people shy away from those because they're like, I don't want to be reliant on a medication, which is a little weird coming out of a mindset of addiction, because you're like, you just used primarily this substance to self-medicate that depression, and now you're not wanting to take something you can control and manage a little bit. Because if you're managing your depression with a medication, you don't have the euphoria that the substance usually fits in there. And so we get these mindsets of like, it's all natural or nothing, and I'd be cautious with that. But it's also about you reaching out, like what you've done tonight. It's about you saying, hey, I need help. Take a look at your surroundings. There's some times when your surroundings feed into that depression. And what I mean by that is when you look around and you're looking at your home, you're looking at your situation, and it feels so overwhelming. Maybe it's not a like a clean place, or maybe maybe things just seem old and stale. Maybe you've got to have some folks come over and help move some stuff around, get some of the old out and put some new in. I say this for youth a lot. When youth are in this process of changing, and maybe they've had some intervention and they're needing to change their life, I always have them paint their room, rearrange their furniture, do things that bring kind of a newness to it, that kind of break up the familiarity of it, so that they can kind of start saying, oh, I'm creating a new chapter now. One of the best things, though, is motion and movement with depression. It's one of these things too, that if it's persistent, and if it's long, and if it gets more and more intense, and your mind begins to wander to the many other attributes that would cause you to start thinking about suicide or going back into substance use, you should seek professional help. There's nothing wrong with coming to a therapist. I remember my very first experience with a therapist. I thought it was the most stupid, insane thing ever. And how could this person who knew nothing about me help me? And I challenged that. And when I challenged it after the fact, it worked. And so I'm a firm believer that just connecting with people, the human connection, is so important. That's one reason, athletes, I think this team works so well. And it works so well because we have camaraderie. We have a team that supports one another. And it's not like traditional meetings where you call them on the phone and you're like, hey man, I'm having a rough time. This is more like, hey, I'm having a rough time. And the team captain on the other side says, great, grab your shoes, we're going for a hike. Or grab your racket, we're going to go down and play some pickleball, or doing something. We're going to get you moving. Plus the fact of being able to connect in a level that's outside of your comfort zone by going for a walk, by going for an experience, clearing your head, getting your the oxygen in and the carbon dioxide out. changing your scenery is huge. But I can't over or under stress that sometimes medication is the key. And there's a lot out there beyond just medication. There are, there are supplements that have I've seen work in the past. The problem is you've got to be very in tune with yourself, because under or over reporting can definitely cause some hiccups. And so I would be more in a mindset to say, let's get you moving, let's get you involved, let's get you a team, and let's set some goals and start looking forward to something. I think that's one thing that was really hard about 2020 was so many of our races and events and our gatherings were canceled. Our meetings were canceled for a significant amount of time. We had a lot of people fall away because they're like, they need that social part. Years ago, when Addict to Athlete first started, we knew that social connection, that connectivity between one person and then a team and then a chapter and then an experience is what really brings people into the realm of sobriety. And so I really think that moving into the concept of like stretching on your comfort zone, getting a friendship, being able to really push your emotional limit and experience new things is really kind of what you can do to slay the depression. What you find often is that behind that depression, there are other things too. And so be mindful that as the depression starts to ease or it begins to wane, other things start to come up, maybe some PTSD, maybe some emotional turbulence you're going to face. And so just know that in early recovery, you're always kind of on the fence of like, I'm going to feel great, I'm going to do it, versus I'm feeling myself slipping. And then there's a little world according to Blu I need you guys to know. And this is just, I could, there's no theories out there. Maybe we can write a book about it. I don't know. But one of the main things I've noticed is that the substances that you use typically reflect the feelings and situations that you're going through. That's why you use that substance, such as, THC, alcohol. These are depressants, right? And so you start looking at, okay, am I self-medicating my depression? Because when you're drinking and you got depression, you start feeling normal. And so then all of a sudden we take that away because of a consequence or a situation, or it's getting bad, it's getting out of control. And you're like, well, that was my coping mechanism. People that typically use benzos, right? Like the benzodiazepines, right? Anti-anxiety medications. I've noticed that those people are the ones that have gone through significant trauma, the heavy duty stuff, the personal stuff, sexual abuse, physical abuse, these things that really bring that loss. And they don't want to feel good. They don't want to feel bad. They don't want to feel period. And that's typically the benzodiazepine people, and opiates. I mean, look at the opiate, epidemic, pain killers, pain removers. I mean, if you've gone through physical pain, emotional pain, mental pain, guess what? You're hurting, right? And what takes away all that pain? A pill, an opiate, heroin, right? And so the cool thing about addiction is it's not that complex. We think we're super complex and that no one's going to understand our trauma and our problems. We will, because although you have different situations and different stories, right? You're all coming from the same experience. And I love working in this for these reasons. So when I find that people are using specific substances, it gives me one door open in the trying to solve the puzzle of what's going on. So keep that in mind. That's probably why your addiction to alcohol, specifically with this person, because I know this person, is going through, is because it medicated that depression for so long. There's a more excellent way to do this. Just you stepping out of your comfort zone and asking that question is huge. But you've got to participate. Getting over that first hump is going to be the hardest. So great question. Great question. Second question down here. I have a family member that's going to need detox. As soon as we can get this person to land, I know that detox is going to be the first step in a long process. What do I do? How do I go about? What are the questions I ask to get someone into detox from drugs and alcohol? I think I need to bring Marissa in on this one too, because Marissa has a lot of experience with this, just because she's always fielded a lot of our questions on Team Addict to Athlete. As much as you guys think Coach Blu has all the answers, 9 times out of 10, we go to Athletic Director Marissa. Marissa, you mind shedding some light on what are some first steps people should do, looking for that first step of like detoxing and removing this, the substance?
Well, so detox is going to be a medical way that somebody can help come off the substances. In most cases, you're going to need to go to the emergency room first, where they will assess and then transfer someone to detox. If you have a pretty good insurance, you can probably go directly. There's quite a few. You can probably go directly to a detox and contact the place. Um, but you need to kind of ask some questions ahead of time, as what do they offer for detox? There, some people honestly will say that they are a detox facility, but really all they are is you lay in bed and you just shake it out, puke it out, and they're going to help hydrate you.
Yeah.
A real medical detox is where they give you comfort meds and things to help with some of the withdrawal symptoms that are so severe and so painful that people are afraid to detox.
Right.
So I don't think it would hurt to call around and find out what do they do. If you are somebody or your family member, somebody that struggles with opiates, you're going to need to find out if it's something they want to look at MAT, find a detox that will allow that. Otherwise, they'll go to a detox and the detox facility will taper them off so that when they leave, they're on nothing. And if you're wanting to do MAT, you need to, you know, get the opiates out of your system and start Suboxone or something else, or looking at getting a Vivitrol shot in 7 days. And what's your next step after that? Is it going to be treatment, or is it home and outpatient? But you need to find out what is it. And so if somebody wants, you kind of have to ask, and maybe they won't know if they want MAT this early, but if they don't know, and that could be a possibility, you want to find a detox that does offer that and will not just taper them down.
Absolutely. So part of this too is the emotional investment that the family yet again is going to take. If you're familiar with Addict to Athlete, you know that there's a certain group out there that kind of chaps our hide.
Yeah.
What do parents, what do loved ones do during this process?
Well, I've seen a lot of questions with family members asking things like that, like, hey, they want treatment, and others saying no, they can do it themselves. Most people, once they're to the point that they really do want detox or treatment, they can barely get out of bed. They can't think 10 minutes ahead. They can't think an hour or 2 hours ahead. So, not that you need to do it all for them, but you need to maybe call and do some research for them. If they're interested and willing and want your and are asking for help, then you step up and help, because it's helping the recovery process. It's not helping them continue to stay in addiction. Obviously, those things usually are a sign of enabling, so you don't want to
Right.
do that. But if they're looking and seeking treatment, there's a lot that they can't do. They're in survival mode and thinking of, where can I get my next fix? I hate this. I don't want to be here. I want to quit, but I'm going to get sick in a minute. They can't think of like calling a list and finding out where their insurance is taken.
Yeah.
Or if it's somebody that's, maybe isn't on Medicaid but would qualify, get to the hospital and let the hospital help them get on Medicaid right there in the ER. So then you can look at the next step after. But calling around and finding a detox that takes Medicaid or takes their insurance that they could transfer to. There's a lot of places too. You'll go to detox and say you want residential, and the facility will not help them look for the next step in care. So as a family member, they're stuck in there and usually don't even have access to phones. So as a family member, if they are interested in that in recovery, I wholeheartedly believe that you should help them find a good place for, safe detox, safe treatment.
It's crucial because it's the starting line of a very long journey. And so if we miss that opportunity, then sometimes getting them back in is a little bit difficult. But remember, ultimately, it's the person going into it that has to do the heavy lifting. And so it's hard because most of the time this isn't the first or second or third or fourth time this has happened. And so I know that it can be challenging. But I also know that one of the biggest things after detox is what comes next. And one of the reasons why Marissa and I are putting so much energy into our extracurricular recovery program is for the family system. The family needs to learn more. As I'm kind of putting this stuff together, I'm realizing that so many families just don't know what to do because they've always been in that crisis mode. They've always been in that emergency mode. They've been there for so long. they get burned out. And so I really do think that taking a little bit of an investment on researching what kind of medical detox, what kind of detox is going to be needed. I highly recommend that if you guys find yourself in that situation, shoot Marissa or I a message and let's point you in a few, give you a little bit of information, point you in a few places. I don't know too many of them right offhand, so I don't think I could do any referrals to you. But we could tell you what to look for. And so I think that's always an important step. And the fact that they're calling you and wanting to go to detox is huge. I'll also be very real with you when I say that I'm noticing that one-on-one therapy, one-on-one investment I've seen over the last several months with several people I've been working with is having more bang for the buck. The family process, the individual process, rather than take my $80,000 and give me 30 days and cross the fingers. I'm seeing more of a benefit in the individualized care. Please, if you haven't, go watch or listen to the podcast with Dr. Bob. He talks exclusively about how important it is to start the journey and finish it. And it's going to take a while, and to do it more client-centered. Many programs will tell you they're client-centered. They're not. They can't be, because there's too much. And so it's a huge step. It's a huge step. Marissa, before I ask this next question, are you noticing anything coming your side? Anybody got any questions that they've got coming through?
Not that I've seen.
Okay. All right. This is going to be a little bit of a sensitive one. So, Coach Blu, I know oftentimes you talk specifically about addictions, not just drugs or alcohol, that Addict to Athlete can help. I have a husband who has unfortunately found himself struggling with a pornography addiction. It's only become a problem that I've been aware of it's only been a problem I've been aware of for several months, but I can see that it's consuming him from the inside. What do I tell him? Whew. All right. This is a challenging one, because more often than not, viewers, listeners, all of you in between, pornography, substance abuse, sexual kind of like vices go very much together. Very rarely will you find someone that has an addiction to a substance that doesn't also have a pornography issue. And it is becoming so severe and still so very taboo that it really does consume anyone who's going down any kind of recovery path, because not only has a spouse figured out that there's an addiction to a substance, or maybe it's become more apparent, but now also there's the side issue of this. And a lot of emotional damage can be done. In fact, I've seen relationships that have been so crushed because of the pornography addiction, and they've almost forgotten about the substance use issues, because it's such an emotional roller coaster, an emotional, I guess, a gut punch because of what it means. Sex and relationship is something that all of us humans yearn for. It's what we do. And so when it becomes something that's misplaced and devalued, the emotional wrecking ball just doesn't stop. The high that you get from any addiction, pornography, substance use, what have you, it affects the same places in the brain. It still does the same things. It's still the same dopamine dump and all the other things that make you feel good. The problem is that it's difficult to overcome because it is so everywhere, right? I remember working with a gentleman who struggled with this severely, and some of the triggers that he had, I didn't even comprehend. Things like not willing to take his family to a water park because of what people were wearing, and it was just so overwhelming for this guy that he pushed away from all social events that had anything to do with summer and and that scene. And it was heartbreaking, because as it was becoming more and more apparent, I was realizing the emotional damage. So much so that the wife in the situation kind of just threw her hands up and said, well, I guess this is just who he is. It lights up the same factors in the brain. The problem is, like, again, that it's everywhere. And so the high, I think, is very much, it's the same. It does the same thing. There are steps to freedom, much like what we would do with Addict to Athlete, right? Is it's coming from somewhere. All addictions, I believe, you guys, come from a core issue. And a lot of times on Team Addict to Athlete, you hear me talk about the core issue. And the core issue is kind of what drives your addiction. It's the thing that you bought into years ago, a false belief, a narrative, something that you kind of like, okay, well, that makes sense for me. And because I think this makes me feel this way, I'm going to use this, insert sin of choice, right, as my coping mechanism. So the core issue is kind of an interesting thing. Everyone's got one. And this is held true specifically with addiction, because some people have come to me and said, I've had the best life ever. I've never had, my parents never yelled at me. I've never had a problem. There's always something, always something. And pornography use is no different, right? Steps to freedom, first and foremost, there's got to be a sense of accountability. And it sounds like that's the first step you're taking right now, the accountability stage. We are not designed to be alone, and men really kind of get these wild imaginations, and they can start consuming the pornography, whether it be on cell phones, computers, what have you, and do it so secretly that it's almost like when you find out, you're at a loss. You're like, what? And so the accountability factor is huge. If this has come out, and I don't know if you discovered this on your own or if he brought it to you, I'm guessing 9 times out of 10, you discovered it somehow. I like to do what I call the phone check with either with kids, teenagers, and or adults, right? And that's where a family member grabs a cell phone and watch the reaction. In my ecclesiastical life, when I was serving in my church, I had a position by which I would counsel quite a few people on this very thing, that if you grab a cell phone and a little bit of panic starts to look, we have a problem. And I think that passwords between, husband, wife, partners, whatever, it has to be well known. There's got to be accessible access to cell phones. And gentlemen, I'm sorry, but if you're in a relationship that you care about, what is there to hide? And I think sometimes we forget that, that accountability process means that our lives need to become an open book. And a lot of times when you grab the phone, they start freaking out a little bit, they get upset. It's like, what's going on? And nothing's going on. You'll see the anger start coming out. But I would say look for the support systems to help you become accountable too. Things like Addict to Athlete, things like local meetings. There's a lot of specific therapy and therapists that I know that have engineered their careers around helping this issue. It's hard not to take personal, specifically if you're the loved one that's found it. And so if you're taking it personal, then you need to be in counseling too, which I think is super important. Accountability one. Number 2 is filtering conversations, media, cell phone, online time. Filter it. Start slowing down the dump, right? The problem with pornography is that it's not just a visual. It's all you have to do is recreate that in your mind and you're back there again. And so it's about having open dialogue. It's about changing behavior. If you can start filtering what's coming in and what's going out and have some open dialogue, it's super, I guess, possible to get to some source of why it's happening. And we could do a whole deep dive on this. I think we probably should, because there's a lot of factors that go into this. There's a lot of justification that tries to take its place too. I've had counseling sessions in the past by which husband and wife would say, well, we just aren't intimate anymore, and these kind of things. And it's our relationship's not where it was. And, I didn't want to bother her with my needs. And this justification kind of tumbles into it. And it gets really murky when we start looking at it through the lenses of, I'm not good enough for you, or all you want is that aspect of my life. You're looking at me as an instrument and not as a person. And so this is where I think a lot of family systems break apart, when we start feeling that emotional abuse of like, I'm not good enough for you. I'll never be good enough for you. And so there's a lot to that. Start filtering channels, start filtering content, Start finding out what's the reasons. There's so much of this. I've seen marriages of decades crumble because of this. And I'm a firm believer that because of the society that we're living in, where everything's getting so normalized, that justifications are just going to go up, 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 up. They really will. People will start, attempting to justify their behaviors, and really it's consuming the person. And just because it seems to be more of a male dominant mindset of pornography addiction, there are females too that struggle with this. And so I would say be open to getting couples counseling as well, and get down to some source code of what's really going on. There's sometimes there's abuse factors. Sometimes there's in our environment, the place we live in here, Utah, it's a very conservative state, and so talking about sex, talking about intimacy is very taboo. And I've noticed that because it is, people back off it. They don't know how to approach it. There's not a lot of dialogue between partners, husbands, wives, and so on. There's just not a lot of conversations. And so it can be a very difficult experience. I've also noticed in young couples that it's one of these things where it's never talked about, and then all of a sudden it's good to go, and it's scary, and it's there's a little bit of a pullback. And so we've got to be okay with talking about some of these sensitive topics, and that's why I think it'd be appropriate to do a deep dive on this, maybe like a bonus episode or something, by which we could get even more professionals. We've aligned ourselves with a guy named Drew Boa, who is amazing in this industry, in this world. The Husband Project, he does this for his lifestyle. He's himself has overcome pornography. I also say that when you hear the siren song, right, when you start hearing that call, notice the habits that are being placed around it. Meaning, and gentlemen, I want you to answer this question. I'm going to say gentlemen because, like I said, it's an issue that a lot of guys have. What kind of person are you when no one's watching? See, that is a line that I heard from Coach Larry Gelwex. What kind of person are you when no one's watching? And I often think about that myself. Am I doing things that are bringing, integrity to my life? And I'll be quite frank and honest with you guys too. I'm a man. I have the same compulsions that every guy has, but I've put things in place for myself so that I don't drift to those things. In my home, we don't bring that content in, right? It's filtered. We don't bring it in. Athletic Director Marissa has code words, passwords, everything to all of my stuff. And so I never have to have the, oh, crud, I got to delete these things because, your cache history is deleted. You're like, what? What is this? Oh, you know what? I had to do a hard reset on my phone. Like, really, all your caches, all your history is deleted. That's strange. Guys, it's not worth your emotional investment. It's not worth your time. And so if you have this problem, again, we can help. There's a lot that can be done. And there are some decent people out there that I know of, specifically individual therapists that work with this, and myself included. And so we can get you some assistance there. But that siren song, what kind of person are you when no one's watching, is a big deal. More often than not, what you find in a pornography addiction is that people tend to suffer spiritually. Meaning, if they're trying to put themselves into a position by which they're trying to have spiritual experiences or be connected with their higher power, it becomes very difficult when that part of an addiction kind of pushes it aside. And so it's not just that you have the addiction itself, it's all the immediate guilt, remorse, and shame that's associated with it too. And because it's such a silent issue, you'd never know how many people really truly struggle with it. And it is in and of itself an epidemic. I get quite nervous about my own children, specifically my daughters, because how prevalent and easy it is to access this. And it's becoming kind of a tone deaf society when it comes to what people will tolerate. I remember, if you guys ever remember, there was this MTV show, I'll probably date myself, but I'm 40, 45 anyway, who cares? It was called Room Crashers or something. Basically, it was a woman or a guy who went into three guys' apartments while they were out to see who they were when no one was around, right? See what kind of stuff they had in their rooms. They'd go into their room and the cameras would follow them, and they'd look at their music collection, and they would look at their clothing styles. 9 times out of 10, when the women found the pornography in a boy's room, it was game over. And I watched this kind of like through very like inquisitive eyes, like, wow, look at that. They're trying to make it, very, much a part of who they are, whatever guy does it. And yet here's these young women who are going to the room, they're like, well, this is the turn off. This is a heavy thing. That alone is an issue. The way that the subjectifying women through these things too, it's not real. It's not kosher. There's no way that you would treat your spouse or someone's daughter that way. And so it gets to a very emotional place very quick. My thing is, hope is not lost. Healing can come from this. The conversation, the dialogue has to increase, right? The accountability is starting, it sounds like. And so you can do this. I've also noticed when I work with people in the past that when they have triggers or they have like thoughts or issues or things, or maybe even relapses, they got to be accountable to it. But if we put it in a position where they're afraid to talk about it because they don't want to disappoint you or hurt you again, it's going to go back underground and it's just going to repeat itself. So these are things that typically need to take place, in real genuine counseling too, because again, it's everywhere. And so my heart breaks for any man or woman who has faced this as an issue because of the mental and emotional and spiritual damage that it leaves behind. So great question. I do know that it can be overcome. I do know that it takes tremendous understanding and emotional work and integrity to get through it, but it can be done. So my heart goes out to you. Reach out for more support, more help if that's in your cards. Okay. Great question. Go ahead, Marissa.
So we have a question online, similar to, I believe, the first question.
Okay.
My depression's really bad. I'm having a hard time doing anything. How do I find the strength to use my tools to help me?
Did they list any of their tools by chance?
No, but it's Selena.
Okay.
Can't get on Zoom, but somebody else got on, so I don't know.
Marissa, I kind of took a little bit of a spiel there with Derek and the depression, kind of how I thought. We've talked about this just recently with people that we know about depression and medications. What do you think about like what's out there? I would love to know your thoughts on like, don't be afraid to go speak to a doctor about it, right?
Oh, absolutely. That's the first one. And if you're on meds, then maybe it's looking at, going to see the doctor to see if it needs to be adjusted. But sometimes it's just, that's okay. You're going to be sad for a while and you just have some sad days, and just knowing that it won't last forever, just hold on, you'll get through it. That's the best thing you could do. So it's just, reach out, ask for help. I have a dear friend who struggles with severe depression. And in fact, today she posted that she's been really stuck for about 8 weeks. And finally today woke up feeling better. And she put on her bright yellow shirt that said something happy and posted about it. But she's really good at even posting and saying, hey, I need help. Yeah. I am struggling. And if anyone's willing to bring my family dinner, come get me and take me for a drink. I
carbonated beverage, right?
Yeah. So delicious.
There you go.
But I look up to her so much because she's always been one that does that. She'll post and say, I need help and this is what I need. And I know sometimes in depression, you don't know what you need. And so, utilizing your support system that knows you well and what they can do to help you is best.
Yeah. So being willing to build your support network, I mean, that's a big deal. And we can be that if we know you need the help, meaning we have a lot of time when people want to like try and read minds, So the fact that she even reached out and said, hey guys, if you want to bring my family dinner, I wouldn't stop you. Whoever that is, genius for asking for help. We are so afraid to ask for help because we don't want anyone to think we're less than, we're weak. build your social network, build your sober support system, right?
Because everyone loves her, and there's so many people that jump on that. But
Yeah,
you
it would
have
be
to
a
be
privilege,
aware.
right?
Yeah, I would love to take somebody dinner when I know they're struggling. You
I
know?
wish more people on the team would do that, to be honest with you. I wish that more people
Yeah.
would say, guys, I'm struggling. If anybody's got an extra piece of pot pie, please bring it over. My family needs it. I mean,
Yeah.
how cool would that be?
Yeah. But I think it's also focus on the things you can do. You know,
Mhm.
if there's a sunny day, you get outside and you get sun on your skin. Um, you're going to get all your liquids. Make sure you're getting your water in. Make sure you're taking your vitamins. They say tons of good things about fish oil. I think that supplement has like some of the highest um, research is on fish oil. Fish
Yeah,
oil supplement is fantastic. Vitamin D.
big.
Make sure you're eating well, getting your vegetables, getting your fruits. You're going to feel better. And then if you can get up and do any kind of exercise, do it.
Right.
But finding even something you just love to do. And if that means like going to a hot tub, you go to a hot tub. You
Absolutely.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not
Well,
the question.
reduce your stress. Okay. A lot of
Yeah.
times depression kind of kicks in because of stress. One of the craziest things about stress is it's the number one cause of relapse. And the crappy thing about stress is it's good and it's bad. It's both. You cannot not be stressed. And so reducing your stress by taking things off your plate that you have zero control or ability will help balance and lower depression. Improving your sleep. Something as simple as going to bed a little earlier, getting a little bit more, right? Improving your sleep hygiene. Sleep hygiene is something that, I've had to, have work on, which is like put the phone down, do all the brushing of the teeth and all that stuff, no more loud stuff, just start chilling out, again, put the phone down. You can't stress that enough. A good sleep hygiene is crucial. Marissa said, what your eating habits, right? Improve your eating habits. We don't realize how much we bring into our body that's just crap. I would love to sit and tell you that I'm great at it, but I suck at it too, right? Life is all about convenience and speed. We start improving our eating habits, not like pulling out the rug and changing everything at once, but like slow improvements are huge. I think Marissa was spot on when she said that. Retraining negative thoughts, play them all the way through. That was a hard one for me. I get caught in these negative cycles and I would just like, why am I doing this? Default to the bad. Well, it's human behavior. Try to start practicing defaulting to the good. I'm depressed right now. I'm not feeling great, but tomorrow I'm going to get up and no matter what, I'm going to put my shoes on and I'm going to go do what I got to do. Stop procrastinating. It's one of the biggest things when I start getting depressed, it's because I'm procrastinating, right? And I can come up with a million and one things I would rather be doing. Small things like today, before we started, just doing a little bit of housework, getting my environment clean again. It's big stuff. So Celine, there's a lot out there. One of the biggest things I think for you that would work the best is to increase your support network. Let's get people running with you. Let's get some things going. I can't wait until now it starts getting a little warmer because we're going to be doing things this year that we didn't get to do last year. Last night in the meeting we were talking about who's your cheerleader. It's very emotional. We need each other. We need each other more now than anything. This socially distanced mindset and culture that we've created out of necessity didn't mean that we were supposed to emotionally distance each other. It was socially, meaning like, let's take a few steps backwards. It didn't mean cut off everything. And I think a lot of people have done that just because they don't realize that it can be emotional connectiveness, not emotional distancing versus social distancing. I don't know. Marissa, you had your mic. Was there something else you wanted to say or anything you wanted to add to that? Because I might have stepped over you at all.
No, that was fine. That was good.
Okay. Anything else on that side?
No, not that I can see, but it looks like Coach Williams is reaching out to Selena right now. So,
oh, very cool. Very cool.
Very helpful.
One thing that Marissa and I, when we worked in the field, we'd always do is talk about creating this emotional and mental toolbox, right? So this wellness toolbox. And it could be things like a legitimate toolbox, but you got to put things in there that are cool, things that are stress reducing. Maybe I wish I had some around here. I use it often over at the old bed or body work. I don't know what it's called. Bed Bath and Beyond. What is that?
Bath and Body Works.
Yeah, that's it. There's this stress relieving There's this, I know we have some in
Yeah.
here. There's some stress relieving, like
we have
eucalyptus.
lotion, we have bubble bath, we have pillow spray, we have air spray, we have candles.
Seriously.
All of it.
Yeah, there's a little can of it floating around here. I use it all the time. I'll put it on. In fact, I have it just as I might even have some. I have it as a as a hand sanitizer.
There's another one we have.
Yeah. Yeah, aromatherapy. This is stress relief right here. And literally, put it on.
Yeah.
A little bit of an inhale and just kind of let it go.
I remember, I forgot about those toolboxes we do.
In fact,
people would put, silly putty. What's Brooklyn's new favorite one?
Oh,
kinetic sand.
Yep.
If you don't know what kinetic sand is, oh my gosh, go get it. Go to Target, order it on Amazon. It's incredible. I remember people putting in, colored pencils. Oh,
see, you remember Coach
Blu has it
Blu
right there.
It's sand, but it's like
magnetic, and
it's pretty awesome.
It's really cool.
Look at it. This is like, see those like satisfying videos on YouTube. That's what this is.
It's like super satisfying. It's calming. It's relaxing.
It doesn't get dirty.
Yeah, and Brooklyn got some for her brother for Christmas because she thought he would like it. He hasn't played with it, but she went and bought herself extra because she was like, "I want it."
It's funny because we laugh at it too, but like, with my ADHD, I've got to have something, if you hear these little popping noises in the back of the podcast, it's because I've got the stupid silly putty and I think I lost it. I think Boston might take it. So now I've got this stupid little squishy thing.
Good.
Your toolbox, put things like that in it. It sounds stupid and corny, but it works.
Put in some bubble bath, put in, crayons and a coloring book that you like.
Dove candy bar, right?
Yes, chocolate for sure. That's what it has to be in there.
Yeah. And here's the deal too, is if you really find someone that you care about, build them one, because they may not know what they need in that toolbox, build them one. We could do a deep dive on that too, but Marissa and I used to do that all the time with the kids. Fidget spinner, all that stuff. Again, it sounds so corny, but it works, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really works. And I think what you're talking about is I've heard, and I've done it too. I've sent friends of mine a sunshine in a box. Mm-hmm. And that's where you just buy all, and our kids have done it for friends of theirs who are having a hard time. Buy all yellow things and you mail it, send it, leave it on somebody's porch, whether it's drinks and candy and a shirt, whatever, everything all yellow, and just a message of here's your gift of happiness and joy.
Yeah, it's a big deal, you guys, and it's interesting that depression's kind of been the theme because it is so prevalent and it's easy to sneak into and it's difficult to climb out, but there's hope. And so we've got a lot of good feedback tonight. Don't be afraid to ask for help. I would love if someone said, guys, I know that everyone's got their own stuff, but like, if anyone wants to grab a bucket of chicken, I would happily accept it. Sounds kind of funny. But guys, that's what it's about. That's why I would love to. I opened this whole podcast out on the platform of get involved on the team. It's important to jump on the team. Marissa, you've seen like this team ebb and flow through the social media outlets.
Yeah.
When do you find the best return on investment? Meaning, like, what do you notice gets people to invest in someone that's struggling? I mean, is it just simply
when they ask, people, it gives people more direction rather than just getting on and, saying something, but like, hey, I need help. Can somebody talk to me? Can somebody, and people are much better at just jumping at, because otherwise they're like, I don't know, I want to do something, but I don't know what to do. And I don't know what would work. And so they just question and second guess themselves. And that's why it's just being straightforward. I did just see we have a question pop up from our friend Dawn from last week.
Okay.
She's out taking care of family in Tennessee from Colorado, struggling there, feeling like she put too much of her life on hold in Colorado. And her stepmom ended up passing away unexpectedly from COVID. Yeah. And now she's just saying, I just don't know how to process all of this. I was wanting to leave and I'm having trouble getting through, this death and so on.
Well, this is, again, I think where we can kind of put ourselves in a mindset of like the shoulda, coulda, woulda. but I want you to take a different approach to it, because again, and I said it just earlier today, humans, we default to the bad. It's what we do. So Don, you're putting into your mindset a narrative that because you brought it up, because you had the audacity to say that you're getting, overwhelmed, that maybe that kickstarted a lot of these other things. It didn't. The other side of that coin, which I think is probably more so, and knowing you the way that I do, the minimal amount, what if the opposite is true, Don? What if it's your higher power that was preparing you already for what he knew was coming, of like, hey, there's going to be some changes on your horizon. And, you start feeling that need to get home and to do things differently, and circumstances happen the way they do. And, you lose your stepmom, and it hurts, and coming at a very interesting time. But what if the opposite is true? What if the emotional preparedness wasn't so much so that you could feel guilt, but what if it was to prepare you so that you could feel it coming, and that you could experience it and then move through it? I think it's all in how we look at it. I don't think that a higher power punishes us for things that are human weakness, addictions, issues. I just don't think we're punished. The latter, I think, is more true, where we are overwhelmingly loved. And because we're overwhelmingly loved, we start feeling guilt and remorse, and we start feeling like sadness and, and being shame-based. But what if the opposite is true? What if you are in tune enough to receive the message that things are changing, and that you're in tune enough to know that it means that you're not going to be there much longer, because the job there will be done? I mean, it's hard to wrap your head around, and it's a very interesting perspective to look at. But what if we don't default to the bad? What if we default to the good? What if we stop living in fear and start living in faith? It's the same thing when you boil it down to its core. It's a belief in something you can't see, whether it's good or it's bad. But each of those have very different outcomes. It's the same thing with your addictions. It's the same thing with the vices and anything that we go through. How do we know that we didn't go through that for our gain? How do we know we didn't go through all of the punishment and all of the loss to achieve something of greater value on the other side? Guys got to remember that because you experienced this on the front line, you then become the coaches and the counselors and the mentors of the people coming behind you. I think we forget that sometimes, and we think that it's us in the crosshairs of God, and it's not that at all. It's he knows we're strong enough to carry it because we've done it in the past. So here's a little glimpse of what's coming. We get to make it make sense, however it fits our narrative. So we can fit it to our narrative to be the villain and the antagonist, and the dark, or we can become the hero. We can become the victor. We can become, the strength, the light. It's entirely up to us how we play this story out. Same with depression. We can keep ourselves there by only seeing the bad. But what happens when you start seeing the good? What happens when you start literally enjoying your suffering? I love that, because when I heard it, it was such an oxymoron. But what if we could truly do that? Can you imagine? All these things happen to us for a very specific reason. And who are we to say that we're weak, that we can't carry the heavy load? Yeah, you can. You've proven it, all of you. If you can hear the sound of my voice, and either you've had a loved one or you yourself have struggled with addiction, guess what? You've carried on your shoulders a tremendous amount of weight. And you've carried that up steep mountains. And you've gotten to the top of those, you're like, well, I'm glad that was over. And you climb down the other side, only to start climbing up another one. And many of you have climbed that mountain to its tallest peak. And no matter what happens, you'll never experience the same amount of emotional pain that you already have behind you. Nothing will ever compare to what you've already experienced. So saying that we want a life free of pain would be a pretty boring life, as much as we all hate going through it. But Don, what if the opposite is true? What if it wasn't a precursor for an ungrateful, stepdaughter and daughter? What if it was God knows you so well that he gave you a head start on how to feel, on how to navigate, on who to turn to. What if he gave you a little glimpse? I don't know. I think defaulting to something positive instead of something negative has a better return on investment. And I'm not even sure why we went that direction, I'll tell you. But my heart goes out to you because of how you felt last week. But I don't think it was bad. Because how do you know it was bad? Well, because you had these things we talked about. You have this feeling of wanting to leave, and your stepmom passes away. Okay. Now, this may sound kind of funny, but I need you to answer it correctly. Okay. I want you to answer it genuinely. How do you know her passing away is bad? Well, Blue, because she's gone, and my dad, has this person, right? Yeah, that is. But if we can see the other side of that veil and kind of get a feeling for the legacy that she's left and for all the joy that she brought, and to celebrate that in a different mindset and to take what we've known about her and create something out of it, that's a good thing, right? And so we go on, we live on, and we remember, and we remorse, we do all these things, we start to heal, and then someone says, hey, you're already forgetting about that person, that's bad. And we're like, well, how do you know that's bad? Because we have to move on. We're going to see them again. When we say we lost people, we don't lose people. They're not lost. 3,000 people a day lost to COVID. They're not lost. We know exactly where they are. On the other side. It's an intense thing, right? So how do we know that's bad? I think it's all in mindset. Something I learned from David Clark. You remember David, Don. You think David wants us remorse, sad about his passing? Oh, man, the man spoke about it almost daily, about this is my life, and I'm not going to be here forever. I'm going to be gone. And going back and listening to David's words, now I'm like, was he a visionary? No, he wasn't. He was just okay with the now. He wasn't afraid of what comes on the other side of that. He didn't feel bad about anything that he had done or anything that he's going to do. He just was there. He knew he was going to make mistakes. He knew that he made mistakes, but for right now, he's here. He's in the moment. I think when we look at it through the right lens, beauty can come out of that. And that's why I think people in recovery are pretty flippin' amazing. That's why I don't think we should typecast ourselves into the term addict. We are so much more than addict. That's a spit in the face in my book. Don, I don't know if that helped, but it feels right. So, Marissa, if that's it, then we'll close her down. Athletes, I want to give you all a special thanks for joining us tonight. Podcast will be out tomorrow. For all you who jumped on the new platform of YouTube, thank you so much. Subscribe to the channel. We talk about these kind of things all the time. We have a lot of amazing content for your benefit. Share it with the loved ones. We don't have the one way. We have a way to find recovery and to find peace and hope in the process. Addiction is not the end all be all. Right? Healing comes and amazing things happen. And then eventually you become the teachers, you become the coaches, you become the mentors. I want to thank Radio Ronin for all that you guys have done for Team Addict to Athlete. Thank you so much, Radio Ronin. And again, check us out. We have the Addict to Athlete podcast. We have one-on-one with Coach Blu. We have the Minor League podcast and a separate venture that has the same kind of flair. We have the Agents of Recovery podcast with myself, Brock Bevel, and NFL football player Max Hall. So check us out every week. And if we can help you, jump on our website, addicttoathlete.org. I want to thank our Patreon subscribers for all that you guys do. And until next time, athletes, go turn that mess of addiction into a very powerful